Jon, could everyone give a warm welcome to Jon?
Thank you. Thanks very much, Cameron. I was saying to a few of the guys before that this is actually the first time I've spoken about myself. I've pitched my company like the guys have tonight many times, and I've spoken as an industry expert, but I haven't delivered a story about me. So I hope it goes well. As Cameron mentioned, I launched Investorist. I'm the sole founder of Investorist. We've grown that over the last 2 years to be a company that's now got a market cap of over $20 million. We've got more than 40 staff and we're in 6 countries. And it's been a very wild ride, and today I'm just going to tell you about that ride. What do we do? We've got a couple of different things. We've got a listing service, which is very much like REA and Domain, where you jump on, but we've just got truckloads of information. We've got about $36 billion worth of property on there now in Australia, UK and internationally. We have these events where we interview people and we do panels and we do all sorts of stuff. We've got these premium portals. We've got about 300 of these in the marketplace. So companies like Knight Frank, Jones Lang LaSalle, 300 odd companies have these portals that allow them to sell their property intercompany. And we integrate with CRMs, heaps of different CRMs, and that's what we do. So this is sort of our picture of the Investorist marketplace, and why this is relevant to our business is we're kind of like if you think about the travel industry, half the room here would have booked a hotel 15 years ago. If you've booked a hotel 15 years ago, what happens is you tend to call Flight Centre. You say, "Hi Flight Centre, I'm going to Sydney. I want to stay near the rocks because that's where my meetings are and I'm going to be there for 2 days and these are the dates." They say, "No problems, Mr. Ellis. Let me get the availability and get back to you." They call you back later on, say, "There's 3 rooms available here. Pick one." I pick it. I'm going to stay at the Amora. And they call back half an hour later and say, "I'm sorry, Mr. Ellis, the Amora is no longer available. You need to pick another one of the options." And so on it rolls. Now, obviously, that's ridiculous. I get on my phone, I book it with Expedia, and away we go. So that's what the Investorist network does for the off-the-plan property industry. So how did I come up with Investorist, and what was the start of my journey? So this is where my presentation gets much less professional, because I haven't pitched this before, and this is all about me. So I guess industry knowledge is the first thing. I also own an advertising agency called Extension. Extension's done over 100 property development projects, and we do the brands and the websites and all that sort of guff. So I've been around the industry a little bit, so I think I knew what I was doing. I had a really good network to help me launch a product like this. I could identify the need, all that sort of domain knowledge guff. I had the ability. So Extension, at the time I launched Investorist, had 24 people working for it. We're a pretty big show in town. I had the resources to build the platform, but most importantly, I had the money. And I thought that was pretty important. I had the desire. I really felt this idea that I wanted to change the industry. I was driving along in my car with my wife last night, and I was talking through my ideas and my presentation. I was talking about my desire, and she said, "That's bullshit. You were just bored." And I guess I probably was a bit bored. Like, I had this idea that I'm a bit bored, and I also was naive. Like, I really thought that I could do it myself. And I think if I'd done it again, or if I'd looked back on it today and the journey over the last 2 years, or probably the last 4 years of doing the venture, and I could see into the future, I would have stopped. But now I'm very glad I didn't, but I would have stopped. And I think naivety was a really big part of my opportunity. And I learnt along the way that being a good businessman doesn't mean you'll be a successful entrepreneur. So my first part was bootstrapping. So I built a successful prototype. I delivered it to a company called Colliers International. I sublet another one to Oliver Hume. I sold them to a few property developers. They're paying me about 60 grand a year to license my software that I'd built. It was going well. I thought, this is brilliant. I am ready to go. I even had a bell in my office. So I had a bell in my office for every transaction, and we were going to start ringing this bell. So we launched. And on launch day, I put out the flag, and I thought I was such a genius, I made my product free. Because everyone's going to use free, like, why not? Come on. And so launch day, doors are open, we're ready for business, we've got stock on the site, we had 45 different development projects in Victoria, ready to roll. I'd spoken to all of my mates who were in industry and they were network partners and agents and they were going to get on there and reserve. And day one, the bell was silent. Day two, the bell was silent. Day three, the bell was silent. And the bell just didn't bloody ring. And I went, shit. And I went shit because I went to, I was a member of a group called Entrepreneurs Organisation, and I went to this startup event, and this guy had the 3 golden rules of startup. And the first one, and I'll share the others with you shortly, was the first one was spend only 1/3 of your budget on your tech development. I spent more than $1 million on my tech development because my industry is really complex. So I didn't have a hell of a lot left in the tank. So, still bootstrapping, and I realised that I needed fairly rapid product changes because I'd built my product all for the property developers and the real estate agents who all said they'd support me and all said they'd use the product and all said it was amazing, and I gave it away to them for free. And the agents on the other side who were my mates said they'd use it, but they weren't really interested in the product that was on there, and all that sort of stuff was going on, and it was a little bit of a problem. And I also learned about another valuable rule, which was balancing your marketplace. I didn't realise that I was launching a marketplace. At the time, I thought I was launching a tech platform. You know, I was launching these series of portals and this place that you could look at stock, and I thought I was the site minder of the real estate industry, and I had these slightly altruistic ideals about what I was doing, but I was actually building a marketplace, and I didn't realise I was building a marketplace until my customers told me, hey, you're probably building a marketplace and you better get some people to buy some stuff, otherwise we're not going to hang around in your marketplace for too long. So I had to change my product. And as I said, I went to that event and they said, start with a pilot, make people pay and refine your product. Well, I didn't make anyone pay. I thought my product was so great, like I made the early piloting people pay, but then the real users didn't have to and they didn't want to pay. And it also starts small, don't plan to go global. Well, my business was global day one. Day one. And so I walked home from this EO event and I went in and my wife had just got out of the shower and she said, how was the event, babe? And I said, pretty shit. I learnt that according to the textbooks, I've done everything wrong. And she went, oh, okay, no problem. All right, well, I'm off, see you. And anyway, then shortly after, she wasn't so lackadaisical because we were running out of cash. The fuel tank was on empty. So I needed to raise some money, and I needed to raise some money fast. So I own an advertising agency. I have the gift of the gab. I can prepare a good IM, and it was a cracking IM. It was brilliant. And my naivety kicked in again. So I called David Lieberman at Square Peg. Dave, how you doing? How'd you get my number? A friend gave it to me, don't worry about that. I'm coming in to show you my idea that is launched, and it's a great business and it's amazing. And he asked me the typical questions of all VC people. What's your market scale? What's your market potential? Who are your customers? Who are you pissing off? And I said, oh, well, these are the people I'm pissing off, and isn't it great? And blah, blah, blah. And he went, oh, I don't like that. You're on your own. Come back later. Like, I've got about 6 months worth of cash left, and at 6 months point, I am homeless. This is a problem. So I decided I've got to hustle. I've got to run around everyone that I know, and I'm in the property industry, so I know lots of wealthy people. They will all back my venture because they've all told me how great it was, and they told me they'd commit, and they told me da, 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 and I only need 1.7 million. It's not that bad, and it's going to be wonderful. So I ran around, and I met everyone, and I think I met nearly every scumbag in my industry possible. They were all bad deals except for 2. And 2 of them were one guy that I know really well, and he's a real character and I like him a lot, but he is, as my wife would describe him, the devil. And then another family that I knew nothing about but had a fantastic reputation in the industry and seemed like really nice people, the Tarascio family. And so I ended up, I was at home and I said to my wife, I've got this guy, it's a much better deal. We give away 25% of the company for the same amount of money, or these guys here who I don't really know but have this fantastic reputation and seem really nice and I really like them, but we have to give away half the company for 1.7 million. And we decided, and this was a key little quote, and I've got a little quotes, Jon Ellis quotes in italics. that we decided it was better to own half of something amazing and something that we'd really enjoy than to own all of or a larger portion of something that was fairly ordinary. And we picked the partners that had the tougher financial deal, but would hopefully support us to grow. And grow we did. So this was about here. We opened an office in Queensland, one in New South Wales, one in KL, 2 in China, 1 in the UK, 1 in Singapore, and now we're on the roadmap to the US. And we did that very, very quickly. We did that like Running Man. It was crazy. And I learned some really valuable lessons. I learned that every country is different. And when people say to you, pilot, go small, don't go global day one, there are massive reasons not to go global day one. So I went and set up all those offices, and again, we got to the point now where we're going, okay, well, we've got 2 decisions. We've got this great business now. We're actually making quite a lot of money. We're not profitable by any stretch of the imagination, but we're making money. We're able to pay our bills. We've got staff. We've got offices. Things are really cool for us. Or we can look at getting a little bit funkier and growing harder, developing our tech a little bit more, going to America where there was 150 in Australia, 120 in the UK, and then 700,000 transactions in the US. So we can go there, and that'll be all sorts of fun again. But we thought, well, with our bank account, we can afford to just keep running our current business, but we can't go to the States. We need some more money. How much money do we need? We don't really know. Maybe about 2.5 million. And so we thought, okay, well, let's look at raising some money. So in December, I was in Malaysia, and I met a guy that ran a really big property platform through Southeast Asia, and he said, oh, I'd be interested in talking to you about investing. And I was like, okay, that's really cool. And I came back and I said, oh, there'll be an opportunity for that because we're planning our international strategy. And I came back to Australia and met a couple of other guys that run similar sorts of businesses here, and they were all very excited about what we're doing and very interested. And I became very distracted by the big fish. So we spent a couple of months courting the big fish and talking about how we could possibly work together and grow this beautiful ecosystem. And for a couple of months, again, my naivety left to one side, and I started not focusing on what was my objective, and my objective was to open an office in the States and to get going. So by this stage, I've got a board and an advisory board and other people in the company, and so I went to our board meeting in February of this year, and I said, I think it's time for a definite move. We should go out to the market. So again, we prepared a beautiful IM, and then assembled a list of 60 parties that may be interested in investing. In 4 weeks, I went around and met all 60 of them. And to give you a little bit of an idea, that is 3 meetings a day on the top of running 2 companies. So it's quite a heavy workload. And at the end of those 4 weeks, and I was going around delivering my pitch, and it's the same sort of pitch. And I learnt some really valuable things about my pitch. And the people critiquing the other pitches had some great insights. But the insight that I gleaned was you need to pitch who you're pitching to. You pick who you're pitching to. Because I went around and pitched to real estate people. I went around and pitched to some VC funds. But I've got such a niche product. I'm sure that even after my description of my product and my explanation of it, there's probably only 5 or 6 people in the room that really get what Investorist does. The rest of you probably go, oh, it's kind of a good thing built by a guy that can't manage a mouse. But there'll be 5 or 6 people in this room that'll get it and go, wow, that's a really cool thing. But it's very hard to find who are the 6. So after 4 weeks, we got a little bit of money in the bank account, and people that have ever run a capital raising process, and they tell them that from the day I started and called my first person to the day I closed with 2.5 million in the bank, it took me 6 weeks. Go, oh my God, that's so fast. But as a guy trying to run 2 companies, that's really long. So in the last 2 weeks, we said, okay, we're closing in 2 weeks' time. A week later, we had no more money in the bank. I think we had about 600 grand in the bank account, and I thought, this is a disaster. Like, I'm gonna have to give all this money back. It's gonna be totally embarrassing, and I'm gonna feel terrible. And I spent the next sort of 3 days calling around. Still not much extra had come in. It was sort of sort of bubbling away, and I was beside myself thinking, oh my God, I have really, really cocked this up. This is the worst thing ever. And then 2 days before close, everything comes in, it's all in the bank, and I've gone, whoa, there we go, it's there. And at this time, I was actually selling a proper business. Like I had a proper business, and it was that hard. So if you're out there raising capital, don't ever think it's just going to happen like that. It won't. It's going to be really, really hard. And when you go into VC firms and they say, oh, look, we want 10% of everything you raise, or we want this retainer of $20,000 a month for 18 months' time, and then we want 5% at the end, they're probably, maybe, I don't know if they earn their money, but certainly they put in a lot of work. So now we've raised our money, we've got money in the bank, we've opened up all these offices, and this is where my whole mindset, I suppose, over the last 2 months has completely shifted. One of the earlier slides, I said to be a successful businessman doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be a successful entrepreneur. But certainly if you want to be a successful entrepreneur, you have to be a bloody good businessman. So now it's back to business basics, and it's back to running my ad agency, Business 101. It's the challenges are the same as everyone. We've got 50 staff across my companies, and the challenges are finding the best people. If you're a web programmer, please see Matt Green. We want front end, back end, full stack. What else do you want, Matt Green? Anyway, so if you are a web programmer, Matt Green at the back. But so finding staff, retaining staff, setting up crazy legal structures like employee share option plans. Every startup conversation I've been to says you need to get an employee share option plan, and you need to get it really, really quickly. Well, if you've got about 25 grand for legal fees early on in your tech startup, good luck to you. Go and set up your ESOP, but it is a hugely complex piece of law. And then there's systems and processes. So if you start from a company that 4 years ago had 4 people working in it and now has 10 times that number of people working in it, some things are going to fall through the cracks, and that's going to start costing you a lot of money very, very quickly. And so no matter how much money you're bringing in and no matter how much funding you've got in the bank, you're going to spend your money really, really quickly. So you need to budget, and you need to try like hell to make money. And my final slide is talking about what basically I think the key ingredients to Investorist having been is now a successful product. It's self-belief, and I think for me the self-belief wasn't really believing in myself, but it was believing in my idea and believing in the quality of the idea, and knowing that I had the ability to make that idea a reality. Flexibility, so I've never had an attachment to outcome. I do meditation every day, and they talk about attachment, but I've never in business had an attachment to this is the only way that things can happen. And you have to be flexible the whole way through. So when you're looking at raising money and you talk to the big fish and you're thinking this is fantastic, we're going to be amazing with these guys, and it's going to be great. You cannot be attached to that outcome. You have to always be flexible. When you launch a product to market and you think, I've spent more than $1 million on this piece of technology, all in wages, it's the best ever. You have to be flexible, and you have to be ready to change. You have to be resilient, because no matter what anyone tells you, the first 2 years of any tech startup are going to be really, really hard. And they're going to challenge you. They're going to threaten to cost you your house, cost you your sanity, a lot of your hair, and it's going to be an issue. And the other thing that I think made me successful is my beautiful wife, who's given me a lot of support. So I married a woman who's a lawyer and also was the face of Investorist for 2 years. So I saved on legal fees, and I also saved on a little bit of talent. So that's good. And the close is my point that if you're a successful business person, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be a successful entrepreneur, because I think entrepreneurship is about a taste for risk, or an excitement for risk, and a chase of risk and a chase of something exciting, where being a good businessman is about managing risk, managing budget, and short-term returns, and to do something that is substantial, and to grow a platform that we've now grown to manage thousands of transactions every month and be well on its way to being a global platform, what was not done for the pursuit of money, and it wasn't done to make a hell of a lot of money. It was done because I was a bit bored and I wanted something a little bit exciting, and I certainly got that excitement.